Well, hey there, Internet people, and welcome back to Greenwing Gaming. It's Friday, which means it's time for another gameplay upload. And we are running another scenario out of Rangers of Shadowdeep. We're going to be continuing on into the second mission out of the core rulebook. For those of you who are new to the channel, first of all, welcome. So glad you're here. But Rangers of Shadowdeep is a narrative single-player game that we are going to be running through for our Friday videos in the short term. This is kind of a stand-in for other games that I plan on playing once we've got the audio situation figured out. But for those of you who have watched, well, actually, before I even get on to the people, to returning viewers, for you new guys, this is actually the third video in this series, so if you want things to make a little bit more sense, I might recommend going back to the other videos. They're plenty of fun, and you can always come back to this one when you're ready. But for those of you who have watched, or you newbies who don't really care about context, a quick recap of what happened last time. Our player character, the Ranger, Tywin Quickblade, led his merry band in search of a fellow ranger who had gone missing, only to discover that the village where he went missing was filled with horrible zombies created by these strange creatures, presumably that came out of the titular Shadowdeep. So we ended up clearing out the zombies from the village and tracking down the creatures that created the zombies that were, kidnapping people to turn them into the undead. And our tracker, Bryn, basically spent the whole second scenario burning down the forest single-handedly while Tywin and his shockingly deadly pet crow hacked apart every monster that appeared before their eyes. The second scenario went very well. I don't think we even took any damage the whole time. And we managed to level up our ranger, so things went pretty well. But today, we are hopping into the first scenario of the second mission, which we will hop... I'm going to hold off on giving you guys the description. I end up reading you guys the blurb anyways, so you'll find out what the mission's about when we get to that. But before we get into all that, I would just like to remind you guys that I am just getting started out on YouTube, so anything you could do to help the channel would be greatly appreciated. Maybe consider liking, consider subscribing, or just showing this to your friends. The more eyes I get on this video, the more we praise Algorithmo, for he is a fickle god. But with the shameless self-promotion out of the way, let's just get into the Rangers of Shadowdeep. And here we are, folks, starting off with mission number 2, the Beacon Tower. Only hours after you arrived back from destroying the nest of spiders, you received a message from your commanding officer. Contact has been lost with the Beacon Tower of Tor Varden, and it is presumed to have been overrun. You are commanded to round up what men you can and proceed with all swiftness to Tor Varden to ascertain the truth. If the tower has fallen, learn what enemy forces now occupy it, and harass or eliminate them as opportunity presents. So, there you have it. The previous mission that we had been playing through in the last 2 episodes was something of a tutorial mission where we play through kind of a simpler, low-stakes task, and now we have our first proper incursion by the forces of the Shadowdeep, having overrun a beacon tower at the edges of Allied-held territory. But now we start off with scenario number 1, the Bridge Guards. As you make your way towards Tor Varden, the gentle rolling hills slowly give way to rocky plains, and finally into the boulder-filled maze known locally as the Scree. It is a barren, unnerving place, a perfect site for an ambush as the large rocks cut line of sight down to just a few yards in most places. Proceeding cautiously, you eventually hear the Enthel River, which you must cross to reach Tor Varden. As you approach, however, you hear other noises as well. Nearly drowned out by the river, voices of an inhuman type, a language filled with whines and barks. Climbing to the top of a large boulder, you get a clear view down to the river. There, standing astride the old stone bridge, is a pack of gnolls. Judging by the large cooking pot they have set up over the fire, these gnolls are camped, likely to guard the bridge. The only other place to cross the Enthel River is a ford in sight of the bridge. Otherwise, it will take at least half a day to reach another crossing. There's nothing for it. The gnolls will have to be eliminated as quickly and quietly as possible. So, that's the quick blurb setting up this first scenario of our new mission. We're on our way to try and figure out what happened to this tower, and our river crossing is being guarded by gnolls, these kind of inhuman dogmen. And this right here is a quick setup for what the map should look like. You can notice that, you may have noticed if you've watched the previous videos, these maps are not super detailed. They'll give you kind of the basics of, oh, hey, there should be a river, there should be a bridge, there should be a bunch of trees here. And then, you know, this is where the players start. They're all pretty much like that. It gives you some freedom to customize the table with whatever terrain you have handy. And then here's the quick setup blurb. I've already read through it. It's set up pretty similar to the last table. 2.5 feet by 2.5 feet, 6 inches from one edge. There's, like I said, a river. There should be a bridge on it, and then, you know, on one side of that bridge there should be a section noted that is a ford, because this scenario does actually have rules that if you try to cross the river anywhere other than the bridge or the ford, you have to make a swimming check, and since none of my guys have any skill levels in swim, I'd rather not deal with that. So the game does, particularly this scenario, does set up the possibility of being able to just sneak your way past the guards. You can, you know, there over here in the special rules section, there's some stuff detailing about how at the start of every turn you can basically make a roll to, you know, see if any of the guards start wandering off. But I'm probably not going to be doing that. I do have a stealthy rogue character, and my ranger has some stealth, but in general, we're more about fighting and destroying the enemy. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to sneak into position, see if we can't drop a few of them, and try to get across this bridge crossing, driving the enemy before us. But looking at the special rules section, it says here that before the scenario begins, the players should select one figure to make a navigation roll. If successful, they may move any 3 heroes up to 6 inches in any direction. So the scenario clearly states that we have to start our heroes within 3 inches of a table edge, of, you know, the ranger table edge, so the opposite table edge of the river. But if we pass this navigation roll, we can pick 3 of our heroes and move them 6 inches closer. Let's see, at the start of each turn, the players should select one hero on the table to make a stealth roll, target number 8. If successful, the players may move one gnoll figure up to 6 inches in any direction. So this is what I was talking about. There's a mechanic here to try and move the enemy forces out of our path so that we could technically try to stealth our way past them. But let's see, but this feature lasts until the alarm is raised, and I'm pretty sure it spells it out later here that the alarm is raised if at any point the enemies can draw a line of sight that doesn't pass through any of this debris like trees and rocks, or if you make an attack against a creature that does not kill the creature. So that's how this stealth mechanic. Basically, we treat all of this stuff, all of this terrain that's going to be on the table, as being kind of line of sight blocking, even if it's not quite fully. And if you stumble into an enemy guard, or you attack one but fail to kill it, the jig is up and all this stealth stuff goes away. Until that happens, though, the Rangers have the element of surprise in this scenario. Whenever they make an attack of any kind against a gnoll, they receive an additional +4 bonus to their roll. And again, this lasts until the alarm is raised. Here it's special mentioning what I said about having to take a swimming check at -3 if we try to cross the river. And then any hero who moves into contact with the clue marker, yeah, this is the same clue marker rules of the other scenarios, that if you get into base contact with a clue marker, you can use up an action to investigate it. Then there's only the one clue marker. It's going to be in a camp across the river. At any point, our heroes can move off the table edge. They can basically cross the bridge and just leave the table. If we manage to do so before the scenario is over, the scenario immediately ends. But otherwise, the scenario will last for a maximum of 10 turns, and we only draw event cards on the odd-numbered turns, which is a little different from what we've done so far. But yeah, that is the scenario we're going to be doing. I guess real quick, we're going to come over here and show you the board. So here we have our 30 by 30 table edge. Technically 30 by 30 ends right where like this corner of the tent is. But we've set up a little bit of a road here, just kind of, if we can make it past this break in the fence, we're off the map, and the scenario is over. But here we have our knoll camp, where we have some enemy fighters. I'm just using Skaven clan rats from Age of Sigmar, just because they were easy to find. Some terrain there from Mantic Games. The river I found on Etsy, like most of my terrain. I know that's not what most of you... It's not going to make it the easiest to track down where all this stuff is from, but honestly, most of the terrain on here is from Etsy or Amazon. But the barricades, fences, hedgerows, walls, those are all from a Mantic Games terrain crate, so is the tent and campsite. We've got some knoll archers that are literally just Skaven clan rats that I kit bashed to have bows and arrows. Some more knoll fighters and a knoll sergeant. The sergeant is just a storm vermin model from Age of Sigmar, or I guess with the square base, that guy's from Warhammer Fantasy. A friend of mine actually spotted me that model. And other than that, the only other little pre-game thing I should mention is we have our new friend joining the party. This is the man-at-arms, Damien, because our last companion was a guardsman. We've brought basically the same thing, but slightly different. Where guardsmen have two hand weapons, this guy has a one-handed weapon and a shield. And he's going to be joining us, and hopefully he doesn't meet the same fate as our last generic melee character. But the way we've got the characters set up on the board, we have our spellcaster, Archibald, along with Lady Gwyneth, our rogue, and the deadliest crow ever, Thaddeus. And then we're just going to have Damien joining them. These guys are going to be making an end run up the table. We're actually going to put Damien on this side just to keep him between our squishier characters and the enemy. But these guys are going to be trying to make an end run to the ford to try and get around and maybe flank around the back of the bridge. Meanwhile, over here we have our ranger Tywin and our tracker Bryn, who are going to be just kind of moving their way up onto this hill to try and throw the smackdown on the baddies. But with that all said and done, real quick, we have to make a navigation roll, and I do believe our tracker has a navigation of +5, so we just need to roll a 7 or better. Ooh, not the best start. We roll a 5, so we will not be getting to move any of our heroes up, but that's okay. We're going to get it done anyways. But with that all the way, with all of that out of the way, we've covered our preliminary stuff, and we're just going to hop into turn 1. Here we are at the start of turn 1 in the ranger phase. All of our heroes starting off within 3 inches of our nearest table edge with the simple objective of moving up the board and getting off the far table edge. So, like I said, we're starting off in the ranger phase, and with Bryn and Tywin right next to each other, they're going to start moving up. Although, even as I say that, I've already forgotten the stealth mechanics, where we need to make I believe it was a stealth roll, target number 8. As of leveling up, our ranger now has a stealth of +5, so we're going to let him do it. And we roll a 12, so he has passed his stealth check. And we're just going to pick an enemy and have them move 6 inches in any direction we want. So we're going to come over to this far side of the table. We're going to measure out 6 inches, gets us to about that bend in the river. So we're going to have our knoll archer come this way a little bit, trying to clear them away from the ford so our stealth team can start to move up. But yes, with that part out of the way, we're just going to have our ranger and tracker start moving up the board. So Tywin is actually just going to double move. So with his 7-inch base move, he has a 10.5-inch full move. He is just gonna dash up the board, not actually using his dash ability. apparently knock over a tree while he's at it. And our tracker, Bryn, is going to do much the same. Trackers come with a 7-inch movement, so he's just going to come over here and tuck in beside Tywin. We're actually going to put him just a little bit further. And this way he might be able to draw line of sight something in the next turn. So with that, we have hit the end of our ranger phase. Pretty quick one. And we just gotta real quick burn through our creature phase. We're gonna randomize some movements. They're just gonna take basically each of these creatures is just gonna have a single action, and we're just gonna randomize their movements a little bit. The creature that we already moved, I'm gonna go ahead and say they just don't get an activation. That successful stealth roll meant we used their activation at the start of the turn. So we're gonna start off here with this guy. We're just gonna go wherever the dice tells us. So he's just gonna kind of point this way. Yeah, we roll the dice. I'm basically looking at wherever the top of the number is, wherever that face of the die is pointed. In this case, the 8 is pointing that way. So we now have an archer who is busily admiring the scenic view of the river. Over here, our archer is just gonna move 6 inches that way. It's going to end up over here, still with no line of sight on anybody. Our bridge guards are going to stay right where they are. And with this archer, 14, so he's going to move 6 inches. We're going to say he can't just hop the bridge, so he's just going to come up, start licking the stone of the bridge. Like the weird little knoll he is. So that should about do it. Camp guards are enjoying a nice hot pot. Bridge guards are, I don't know, enjoying stories about bridges. And with that, we come over here to Stealth Crew. And we are just going to have our fighter here, our melee character, move up his 9 inches, which gets him to right about here, keeping some trees between him and our adversaries. Our buddy Archibald's going to do much the same, just hopping up with a double move over there. Gwyneth the rogue coming up close behind. And Thaddeus may be a hero, but right now he's not feeling so heroic, so he's just going to come over here and hop in with the rest of our crew. And that brings us to the end of turn 1. And since it's an odd-numbered turn, we get to draw from the dreaded deck of many happenings. And we have the Red Ace. So let's come back over to our typical mission table, find out what the Red Ace does. Red Ace. Oh, Soldier. A soldier that has escaped the attack on Tor Varden appears on the table. Place him anywhere you wish on the small side of the table. This soldier has the same stats as a man-at-arms companion. Treat this soldier as a companion for the rest of the mission, even if that takes your ranger above his normally allowed number of companions. This soldier may not be the first hero to exit the table. So, as we are trying to sneakily creep our way up the table, literally turn 1, some guy is about to Leroy Jenkins his way from the direction that we're about to head. I'm going to need a minute to find myself a soldier to put down, but then I will see you guys at the top of turn 2. And here we are at the start of turn 2, just giving you a quick sweep of the board to remind you we've got our stealth crew making our way up the left of the table. We've got our ranger and tracker trying to sneak their way up on the right side, our hapless knoll guards, and we've got our soldier over here, who we are going to call Leroy, because god damn it, Leroy. He's going to come yeeting himself in the back here. After looking at the rules for the scenario, basically the way this is going to work is at the end of the creature phase, the alarm is going to count as having been sprung, because if they end an activation within line of sight of a companion, of a player-controlled model, which he is, the alarm goes up. So I basically just have the ranger phase to try and get myself into position. So with that in mind, we're going to start with this turn's stealth roll, see if I can't move one of these guys into a better position for me. So stealth roll target 8, And we get a 13 plus 5 from our ranger is a 18. So yeah, we are actually going to select this archer right here and have him move 6 inches into the woods, see if we can't heroically stab him in the back. So that should get, yeah, that will actually get him right back in here, perfectly in range to get jumped on by these brave heroes of the kingdom, skulking behind some trees. But yeah, so that brings us into the ranger phase, where we are going to just group activate with Bryn and Tywin. Bryn is gonna, Bryn is just gonna come in here with his first activation to get into base to base with the Gnoll. Our ranger Tywin is gonna come back him up and see if we can't roll this guy for his shoes. So we're going to come over here, and for our second actions, we're actually going to have Tywin go first. Between the surprise bonus, the gang up bonus, and just his flat fight of +3, he's going to be a +8 to this roll, while our fighter is just going to have a +2. That's a little bit deadlier than what we've been facing so far, but as we get farther into these missions, the enemies are going to get a little bit harder. And so, yeah, we're just going to make our quick combat roll. We've got our 2 d20s. Green dice is going to be our ranger. Blue dice is our adversary. Okay, so our 15 for our Gnoll becomes a 17. But, fortunately, our ranger has rolled a 14 plus 8. Gets him up to a 22 for 27 points of damage. And he heroically beats up this Gnoll. So, 1 Gnoll archer down. Technically, Bryn does now get a second activation, so we're actually just going to have him. He only gets to move half because it's his second movement, so he's just going to move right in here up to this log. And he's going to just kind of scope out the bridge and see what these guys are all about. Because actually this, weird, the team that was supposed to steamroll things is actually suddenly looking pretty clear. But we are now at the end of the ranger phase. We're going to go into creature phase. Where again, at the end of this phase, it's going to be when the alarm goes up. So we're just going to start off with Archer over here. Which way is he going? The numbers, so yeah, he's just going to come over here, spot this guy, and now the jig is up. So now these enemies are just going to follow typical rules, heading immediately towards the nearest player-controlled model, which for these guys, our Leroy friend is 8 inches away, while our tracker is just 6. So Buddy Boy's going to come down here, looks like 2.5 inches, another 3 to here, and another 4, so he's going to end up right around here-ish, and end up not quite making it to our tracker. The Gnoll Sergeant, on the other hand, yeah, he's gonna go straight for Leroy. He's gonna get into him with a single move, and then get to make a fight. Now, our man-at-arms is going to be a fight of +2 to the Gnoll Sergeant's fight of +3. So this is not going to look great for him. But let's see how that turns out. Well, I could have gone worse. The Gnoll Sergeant comes charging down there with his pike, and they both roll a 2. So technically the Sergeant wins. The Gnoll Sergeant, that is. He does win, but he doesn't cause any damage, because our soldier has an armor of 11 right now. So yeah, that's a wash. And then our other fighter here is just gonna come around and end up much the same as his buddy, a little bit behind him. Meanwhile, our Gnolls in the camp are just gonna come over here and dogpile on Leroy. The second one, not quite. Actually, no, with if we measure this out, Yeah, 9 will not. They have a base move of 6, so a double move of 9. So 9 gets him right about there. So yeah, Leroy's about to get dogpiled by a bunch of guys. This archer already had his activation. This archer can't really shoot at Leroy because he's already in melee. He technically could, but he's got allies there, so what he's going to do is just take a shot over at our tracker, because he is the other nearest player-controlled model. And this actually gives us a chance to show off the ranged attack modifiers, because we haven't really been doing much of that in these scenarios thus far. So for every piece of cover between the shooter and the target, they take a negative shooting penalty. So right here, we have a piece of hard cover in the bridge. That's going to be a -2 to his shot. Then he's got another light piece of cover and another light piece of cover in an intervening model. So he's currently going to be at a -4. Now, he's normally a shoot of +2, so he's actually going to be at a shoot of -2 to our tracker's fight of +1. And then we do this as usual, green for goodies and blue for baddies. Okay, so our archer did successfully hit, but with a total of -2, it's going to be an 8. Our tracker has an armor of 11, so the arrow hits him, but it just kind of lands in his big trench coat, not doing any damage. And with his second action, I suppose he'll just move up to try and minimize the cover. So next time he'll only be taking a -2, so he'll be a shoot of +0 next time. Over here, our archer is going to try taking a shot at our stealth crew. Again, there's going to be at least a -2 to this, so it's going to be a fight +0, a shoot +0. He's going to be targeting our new guy, who will have a fight of +0. So when you, that's another thing. If you're on the receiving end, when you're resolving a shooting attack, the model being shot at still uses their fight stat. Oddly enough, that's a little weird, but I guess it's the rule. The guy Joseph McCullough, who wrote the rules for this, figured that when you're getting shot at, you're not actually using your own shooting ability, which I guess makes sense. But yeah, so we're going to have a fight of +2 against a shoot of +2. But as I said, there's a bunch of cover between our shooter and his target. So I'm going to call that a -3 modifier, because 1 for the fence, 1 for the tree, 1 for the boulder. So that's going to be a total of -1 to fight +2. So that becomes an 18 to a 19. Wow, literally every bit of those modifiers came up. If he had had even 1 less negative modifier, that would have been a tie, and our character would have taken damage. Whew. And then, again, with his second action, he's just gonna hop over and kind of close the gap just so there won't be any cover next time. But the ranged units must shoot first if they're capable of shooting, just because you also take a penalty for moving. So yeah, that's why these archers had to move first before shooting. But with that all being said, we've double moved most of our creatures. Took a couple pot shots with our archers and a failed attack with our sergeant. That brings us to the end of the creature phase. It's now time for the companion phase. So the good guys basically get their turn part 2. So we're going to come over here to, I guess, no longer stealth crew, just attack crew part 2. We're going to start off with the new guy. He is just within 6 inches of... Sorry, I knocked over a tree. He's just within 6 inches of that null archer, so he doesn't particularly feel like getting shot at anymore. So he's going to come over here and go base to base with our archer. Thaddeus is going to take his first action and do much the same. Because he's a flyer, he gets to just ignore terrain pieces like this. He can just fly right over it. And so our new guy's going to have at least some bonus when he makes his second action. And Archibald actually does have the movement to get into base contact, so we're just going to super gang up on this archer and be really, really unpleasant about it. Say mean name, call him mean names, and just all around be bullies. Meanwhile, Lady Gwyneth, being the brave hero she is, being, a rogue, is just going to go, nope, and end up running right past all her friends, ending up by that fence with her 10.5-inch double move. And so that takes care of both of her actions. So now we're going to come over to Buddy Boy over here, who's going to have a fight of +2 to the archer's fight of +1. However, he's got a double gang up bonus, so he's going to actually be a fight of +4 to a fight of +1. So let's see how this goes. Oh dear, he actually loses. Our null ends up with our archer ends up with a total of 9 to his total of 4, to his total of 8. So the archer actually wins, but according to the rules of this game, will never try to force an enemy player or a player-controlled model back, and didn't roll high enough to actually cause damage. So we just move on to, I guess, Archibald will take a swing at it. He's going to be a total of fight +2 to the null's fight of +1. So let's try this again. Oh, not so much. Null's going to end up with a 5 to Archie's 7, so again, it's a victory, but Knowles have an armor of 11, so no, that's not going to do it. And now we're also going to have Thaddeus go. He's, again, fight +2 to fight +1, maybe third time's the charm? Not quite, well, no, because yeah, he's rolled a 9 +2 from the gang up bonus is an 11, exactly enough to do no damage. So unfortunately, this archer has gotten jumped on by 3 guys and is just totally fine. He ain't worried about it at all. That brings us to the end of our turn 2. Because it's an even number turn, there is no event phase, and I will see you guys at the start of turn 3. Here we are at the start of turn 3, where things are just starting to heat up. We're starting off in the ranger phase, where Tywin is actually not close enough to anyone to group activate, but seeing a pair of dastardly gnolls getting ready to charge our tracker, Tywin, I've already pre-measured this, he is going to yeet himself through our tracker and into base contact with our enemies. Because of the weird way the terrain is going to behave here, we're just going to get Tywin's base secured under that tree. He's going, because this enemy would normally snap into base with contact with him anyway, we're just going to keep these guys a little bit back so you guys can see a little bit better what's going on. But just remember, they are in base contact with Tywin. And for his second action, he's going to try and fight one of them. So Tywin is going to be fighting this buddy boy here. It's actually going to be even dice, because Tywin is a +3 fight to our Skaven or Null, depending on how you want to think of it, who is normally a fight +2 because he's a Null fighter, but has a gang up bonus. So this is going to be dice even, and we'll see how Tywin can do. Oh dear. I mean, it's not so bad. He loses the roll off, but again, we're just rolling low dice in general, so our Knolls are not. He's at least not going to take any damage in his own turn. But moving on to the creature phase, because we're already done with the ranger phase, we have a bunch of creatures in combat, so we're just going to stick right here with this fight with our Gnoll number 1 fighting our ranger, so dice even. Oh no. Okay, so our Gnoll has rolled a total of a 20. Now, the rules do state that enemy creatures cannot crit, so that's going to be a total of 20 damage. Tywin has an armor of 12, so that's 8 damage. We're actually going to pop his roll with the punches ability, so he's only going to take 4 of that. Because, wow, I need him to not die right now. So he's going to take 4 damage from that first attack. They're still locked in combat, so this Gnoll loses his second action, and then other Gnoll is going to attack him. Again, dice even. Let's see if Tywin can pull this out. So the Gnoll does win with his +3, but he's going to get a total of 8 and not do any damage. So yeah, we're just going to leave it there. But going over here, So, actually, real quick. So, yeah, the first Knoll did 4 points of damage. We're going to mark that up in a second. Second Knoll did nothing. We're coming over across the bridge here to where Leroy's in some trouble. We're going to do the Knoll Sergeant first, because I have a feeling he might make short work of Leroy. So, the Sergeant is actually currently going to be a fight of +4 to Leroy's +2. So, sorry, we're not going to be counting dropped dice on this channel. Okay. Oh. So, Leroy has rolled a natural 20. And our Sergeant has rolled a natural 1. My word. Okay, so Leroy gets a total of 27 damage, because he has a 20 plus his fight of +2 gets it to 22, and then the crit rules mean that becomes a 27. Our Sergeant has an armor of 11 and a health of 12. Oh my god, did Leroy just kill the Sergeant in one go? How is the guy who steamrolled our plan somehow the most effective? He literally just one-shotted the toughest enemy model on the board. What is happening, you guys? I don't even know what to do with this game anymore. But, so the Sergeant came down here, missed with his first wing, and then was immediately impaled by Leroy. But seeing his commander fall, this Knoll fighter here is going to try to avenge him. It's going to be dice even on this. So, let's see how this works. Oh my goodness! And Leroy rolls another natural 20. What is happening? Our Knoll did roll an 18 this time, but considering they both have the same modifier, Leroy wins that one, and once again, a Knoll suffers critical existence failure to the power of internet memes, apparently. Oh my god, what even are these scenarios? But with that, if we're still sticking closest to closest, we now have to come over here where our Knoll is gonna fight Thaddeus. Thaddeus was the last one to attack him and has the lowest wounds, so it's gonna be, again, dice even. Where we have rolled our third nat 20 in a row compared to the Knoll's 15. So again, Thaddeus, after completely whiffing his first attack, just kind of backed up, shook himself off, and just dive-bombed into this Knoll's face, pecking out his eyes and causing critical existence failure. Guys, I don't understand why my ranger is useless, but my crow is a deadly weapon. Truly mysteries abound. But this warrior is gonna charge in and try to avenge his fallen brethren. Now, I mean, can Leroy follow this up with a third nat 20 in a row? He cannot. So he rolls a 10, becomes a 12. The Knoll rolls a 14, becomes a 16. Becomes 4 points of damage, so Leroy is going to go down to 6 wounds, because he has the typical 10 for a melee character. So he's going to go down to 6 wounds, just going to mark that up right there. His winning streak could only last so long. But coming over here, back to the bridge, our archer is going to shoot at our tracker, Bryn. So it's going to be a shoot of +2, but he's still in trees, and there's a melee between them, so it's going to be a shoot of effectively +0 to Bryn's fight of +1. So, and our archer has rolled a 3. It stays a 3 because of the modifiers. Bryn has rolled a 10, so the shot goes wide. And I suppose, rules as written, this creature should now be trying to get a little bit closer to try and get rid of the modifiers that remain. And so we're going to call that an inch to get down, and 5 more will get him just here. Trying to close the gap, and our final archer is just going to turn and shoot at our rogue, since he doesn't want to risk shooting his buddy. And he's just going to let off a shot at Gwyneth. However, he's shooting through 2 trees and a fence, so he's going to have a total modifier of -1 to Gwyneth's fight nothing. So, yeah, he rolls a 5, which becomes a 4. She rolls a 6. Again, shot just... Our archer lets off a shot, lands right in the branches, doesn't even come close to hurting her. And with that, moves 6 inches closer to try and eliminate as many of those negative modifiers as he can. That gets us down through our lengthy third creature phase. Going into our companion phase, we are actually going to have Bryn take shots at the archer that's been shooting at him. That makes sense to me. Yeah, why not? Let's do that. So it's going to be shoot +2. There's no longer any modifiers because the archer has, oddly enough, been closing the gap trying to get rid of modifiers, and did so. So Bryn's shoot of +2 to our Null's fight of +0. Let's see how this works out. No, the Null saw that coming and ducked with a natural 1 versus a 19. So his second action, Bryn is just going to reload and see if he can't get off another shot in time to, not die. But as for our other companions, we're going to come over here. Oh, I'm actually not real sure how to do this. I think what we're going to do here is Archibald is just going to use his first action to get here. And then, let's see, Thaddeus is going to start moving his way over. He's going to double move into base contact with this Null, try to alleviate that gang up bonus. Over here, we're going to have Damien take his first action, getting into base contact. We're just going to move that tree over. These are basically decorative at this point. Don't mind me just knocking over fences. And Damien is going to end up in base contact. Gwyneth is going to do much the same, hopping the fence to get into contact with the guy who just shot at her. And then with our second action, well, I guess order of operations does matter here a little bit. Thaddeus is going to have taken his first action to get to there, and we go into our second actions, because remember, rules as written, none of our heroes in the companion phase can take their second action until everyone else has taken their first action. So Thaddeus moves to there, and then Archibald, having moved here, is going to fire off his fireball spell, because he hasn't had an opportunity to use any of his magic yet. So he is just going to select a point just within 3 inches of all of these Nulls, but outside of 3 inches of Tywin, so it's going to be right about there, hitting all 3 of the Nulls, and this is going to be a +3 magic attack against their collective fights of +2 and +1. So let's do the archer first. Shoot +3 to fight +1. So that's an 8 to a 9, but he's armor 11, so it does nothing against our middle Null here. 12 becomes a 15. Ooh, but the Null has a total of 21. Again, doing nothing. Man, this fireball's not working out. And then against our spear-carrying Null over here, and again, doing nothing. The fireball explodes here, kaboom, and does literally nothing to any of these Nulls. And someone feels a little embarrassed now. But don't worry, it happens to the best of us. With that, like I said, Thaddeus is going to come over here and engage our enemy. And over here, our brave heroes are ganging up on yet another nerd with a bow. So we're going to have Damien swing first. He's going to have a total of fight +3 thanks to Gwyneth trying to shank that Null in the back. So fight +3. Oh, no. So that's a total of 15 for his second. Man, our new guy is not doing great with the combats. In his first attack, he did nothing. And on his second, he takes a total of 2 points of damage, taking him down to 8. So we're just going to mark that up real quick, with him being on 8 wounds. And then Gwyneth is just going to take a try. She's going to be a total of fight +1 to fight +1, so dice even. Sorry about that. We got a little bit of interference there. So, okay, Yeah, so Gwyneth gets a total of 7 points of damage, gets completely absorbed by the Gnoll's armor of 11. Nothing to report there. Then coming over to Leroy, who's going to try and fight his way out of this. He's going to be fight +2 to fight +2. See if he can't overcome his no, not so much. His opponent gets a total of 18 from his armor of 12. Is going to be 6 points of damage. He goes down. Leroy is dead. Dang, and here we were hoping he could be the meme we all rooted for, but not so much. He did take out two pretty sturdy enemies, though. He more or less cleared out this camp, cleared out the toughest gnoll we were going to have to deal with. And that was actually in the companion phase, so yeah, he's just dead, and the gnoll is going to be free to activate next turn. But with that, we've reached the end of our companion phase. Not a great turn for our heroes, but maybe they can turn around the next one. But we've reached the end of an odd-numbered turn, so we go to the deck of many happenings. And we get a red 3. So let's go find out what that does. I'm sure it's something wonderful. Oh, Gnoll! Great! They get reinforcements. So we place one Gnoll fighter at the center point of the table, then roll a random direction and move the Gnoll 8 inches in that direction. Alright, so the center point should be... I don't know why I put my tape measure away, because I'm obviously going to need it. Our center point should be right about here. So right at the edge of that slightly lighter spot. And I just put it away again. Why did I do that to myself? So we put a Gnoll, another Gnoll has entered, has just come jogging down the roll, seeing his buddy is currently being massacred and going, what is going on? And now we're just going to roll a random direction again, whichever facing the arrow has. Okay, it's just going to move. He's just going to move 8 inches closer. So he sees his buddies getting jumped on, and is like, "Oh my god, I must try to stop this." Comes running up to the bridge to congratulate his buddy over here for having killed Leroy, saying, "Hey, wow, that guy looked really scary, and you kicked his ass." But that brings us to the end of our event phase. Things not looking great for our heroes. But let's see if we can't turn it around for them. And I will see, that brings us to the end of turn 3. I will see you guys at the top of turn 4. And here we are at the top of turn 4. Things looking a little bleak here, with Bryn having just finished reloading his crossbow, hoping he can maybe shoot this archer who has survived a gunshot and a fireball. Over here, Archibald looking very sketched out by this very angry Gnoll over here. This guy just finished killing our favorite walk-on extra. And over here, 2 of our heroes are somehow being tied up by a nerd with a bow. But that's okay. Let's see if we can't fix this. So, over here in the Ranger phase, Tywin is actually maybe the first time in this entire... Well, for the first time in a while, is going to be able to group activate with 2 of his companions. So, Bryn is actually going to take his first action and just shoot the archer, because he's tired of getting shot at. Ooh. So he gets a total of a 16 to our archer's archer's modified 20. So the archer just ducks the shot. And then I guess for his second action, oh man, do I want him to reload? Or no, he's actually going to come over here and get into base contact with this Gnoll, because now that the Gnoll has, we've got a total of 3 guys wrapped up in this combat, Tywin is actually now going to be the one getting a gang up bonus rather than the Gnolls, because the loyalist bird ever has come to the rescue. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and have him fight. He's going to be at a fight +1 thanks to the gang up bonus to the Gnoll's fight of +2. Come on, buddy, be the hero we need. No, he's immediately taken out of action because our Gnoll has rolled a total of a 17 to Thaddeus's 13. That does surpass Thaddeus's armor, so Thaddeus is off the table. Let's see what happens to him. He rolls an 8. He's fine. So he's taken out of action, gets swatted away by a spear, but he's going to be coming back to us next scenario with no negative repercussions. And so, yeah, that's not going great. We just lost our gang up bonus. But at least we're not getting ganged up on. So Tywin is now going to take his turn to try and swing on this gnoll with a total of fight +3 to fight +2. Let's see how this goes. Okay, it's 8 to 8. So Tywin does win, but he rolls exactly an 11, not doing any damage. We are just not getting through this armor. I really need to start breaking some of these guys off. So I'm actually going to use my Hand of Fate reroll, see if I can't do a little bit better. This is his once per game reroll that he has for a special ability. Okay, here we go. So he rolls now a 14, becomes a 17, becomes 6 points of damage. It doesn't quite kill the gnoll. Just to run that through you guys again, he gets a total damage of 17. The gnoll has an armor of 11, reducing that to 6 points of damage. The gnoll has 4 hit points remaining. And Tywin's second action is unfortunately wasted because he did not manage to... Well, he couldn't have gotten himself out of combat. He's fighting 2 guys. But with that done, we actually go into our creature phase. And over here, let's go ahead and resolve the fight. I actually think we have a chance of winning. The gnoll is actually going to end up fighting the new guy, Damien, even though he's got the better fight stat, because Damien is wounded where Gwyneth is not. So it's going to be Damien with a total of fight +3, thanks to the gang up bonus, and the archers fight +1. So let's see how this goes. Ooh, dear. So our archer has actually caused another point of damage. Damien not coming through for us. Ooh, these fights are not working out for us. But coming over here back to this combat, the injured gnoll is going to swing back with a fight of +2 to fight of +3. So our gnoll rolls a 2, becomes an 8. Tywin rolls a 9, becomes a 12. So in his own turn, the gnoll takes another point of damage, going down to 3 wounds. Maybe we'll get rid of him sometime this century. And I just realized I forgot to mark up Tywin's wounds, because he is down to 14 hit points. But still more than Bryn, so the other gnoll is going to turn his attention to our tracker. So it's going to be fight +2 to Bryn's fight +1. Coming over here. Oh, but Bryn, apparently better clubbing his enemies with a musket rather than actually shooting them, ends up with a 19. Although because his melee weapon is technically a staff, he suffers -1 damage, so it's actually going to be just 18 points of damage for a total of 7, taking this gnoll also down to 3 wounds. So we just can't quite seem to kill these things, but that's alright. But where this gets a little alarming is that now this gnoll is going to move in on Archie. Fight +2 to fight +0. Come on, Archie, survive! Interesting. It's actually exactly dice even, because Archie has rolled an 18 with a +0, where the gnoll has rolled a 16 with a +2, so they both have a score of 18. They both take damage. Archie has they both have armor 11, so they both take 7 points of damage, putting them both down to 3 wounds remaining. This is getting a little weird, how everyone on here has the same number of wounds. So yeah, there's our gnoll with his 3 wounds, our caster with his 3 wounds, and then over here, our final enemy is just going to move his 9 inches to get on the bridge. And with that, we come to the end of our rather lengthy creature phase, and we go into our companion phase. So we're going to start off with Gwyneth attacking the nerd with the bow. She's going to be a total fight +1 to fight +1, so let's see it. The gnoll wins, but causes no damage. And then we're just going to have Damien do the same exact thing, except he'll be fight +3. Okay, and there we go. We finally win a combat. Damien has rolled a natural 20, becomes 23, becomes an instantly deleted rat man. Whew, so we finally got that out of the way, and then Damien is actually just gonna, for his second action is gonna take a move, where his 6 inches is actually gonna get him just past this gate, see if he can, and into base contact with our Null, see if he can't do some good helping out a friend. With that, I guess Gwyneth technically does get freed up in time for her second move, so she's just gonna head to the ford over here, the only other crossing point besides the bridge, where she's just gonna barely make the far bank and leave all these suckers behind. With that, we still have Archie's turn, where, despite all better instincts, he's gonna use his gang up bonus of +1 to try and finish off this Null and hope it doesn't come back to bite him. And of course, we've managed to drop our dice on the ground, so we're just going to re-roll that real quick. Oh dear. So it's a total of 15. Minus 11. Archie's down. What happens to him? He rolls an 18 for his out of action. He's going to be fine. He's not going to be dead or anything, but he is down and will not be receiving a progression point for this scenario. So our rank's starting to get thinned out. Thaddeus removed, Leroy dead, Archie learning why spellcasters don't get into melee. Ooh, a rough turn 4, but since it's an even turn, we don't got to worry about an event card, at least, so we got that going for us. And with that, we've reached the end of turn 4. Jump back in at the top of turn 5. Here we are at the top of turn 5. We are now just about halfway through the scenario. See if we can't fight our way through these guards. Leroy showing up turn 1 and springing our trap a little too early is really starting to give us some trouble. But we are going to start off in our Ranger phase, where Tywin is going to see if he can't finish off some of these Nulls. Oddly enough, the move here actually might be for him to swing on the Null in combat with Bryn, see if we can't free up our tracker. So that's what we're going to do. He's going to get a total of no gang up bonus here, so he's just going to get his fight of +3 to a fight of +2. Sorry for that hitting off camera, but we have a total of 17 plus 3 becomes a 20. Oh, hey, which actually gets him the 25 bonus, and the Null has only rolled a total of a 9. So, yes, Tywin finally realizes, hey, swinging on this guy isn't working. Let's try swinging on this guy, and immediately deletes him. You know, I like to think that the Null was so busy trying to stab our tracker that Tywin just spun around real quick, shoved his sword in his back, like the boss that he is. Which actually frees up our tracker, because Tywin is still locked in combat with this buddy boy, won't be able to take another action, but Bryn gets his 2 actions, the first being to finally reload his crossbow, aka musket, and he's just gonna take a quick shot at Buddy on the bridge here, where he's gonna take a -1 penalty for the... Actually, in that case, yeah, he's actually gonna shoot at the archer here, see if he can't get rid of him, because at least there won't be any penalties for shooting him. So it's gonna be a shoot of +2 to a fight of +1. Let's see it. Oh no, sorry, knocked that over. That was a 17 for our archer, so he is gonna to a total of 14 for Bryn. So he reloads his musket busily and getting a little too eager, fires off his shot a little too soon, leaving the archer unharmed. He's been deadlier this game so far in melee, but oh well. That brings us to the end of our Ranger phase, jumping right into the creature phase. Let's start with the Null on 3 wounds fighting our new guy, Damien. It's going to be fight +2 to fight +2. So yeah, that's going to be a total of a 10. Yeah, it's going to be a 10 plus 2 becomes 12 versus a 19 becomes a 21. Wow, yeah, new guy. Good job. Finally figuring out what that... Damien has finally figured out what his sword is for and puts the pointy end in the bad guy, deleting another enemy. In their own turn, no less. So that's always satisfying. Over here, coming to our only other remaining combat with the heroes finally remembering what it is to be heroes. Our Gnoll is going to take a swing at our Ranger, not loving that he just saw Tywin shove a sword in his friend. It's going to be fight +2 to fight +3. Oh dear. So our Gnoll has rolled a total of 19 to Tywin's 13 total, with accounting for modifiers. So Tywin's actually going to pop another of his abilities. He's going to pop the parry ability, which gives him a +10 to an attack once per game, but he can't cause any damage. He's just successfully fending off the attack. Because I don't need my Ranger going down. But with that said, that's the Gnoll fought. Our Archer is going to take a shot at Bryn. Again, shoot +2, fight +1. Let's see what happens here. Our Archer actually, for the second time, does successfully connect, but with such low numbers, it's not going to matter, because Bryn's armor is going to absorb the hit. So I like to think, again, it's just his ridiculous big trench coat kind of deflecting the shot. But with that said, our last remaining Gnoll here is just going to run straight ahead into base contact with Damien and make his attack roll. Dice even at a +2 to both of them. Oh god. Okay, so he's rolled a total of an 18, is 7 points of damage, exactly enough to take New Guy out of the fight. New Guy rolls a 13 on his out of action result, so he's gonna be okay, but we are running out of bodies over here. And that actually means there's only gonna be our rogue left to activate in the companion phase. Man, things are just looking a lot more brutal for our heroes in this scenario. The difficulty level seems to have adjusted. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Payday 2, but we call this a difficulty tweak. But yeah, so in the companion phase, our rogue is just gonna hut as fast as she can, ending up right by the bridge. She is eyeing up the gold waiting for her in this camp. She's trying to make off with the money while our heroes are being brutally cut apart. Just like a rogue. But with that, we have reached the end of turn 5, and it's an odd turn, so we go to the deck of many happenings, where we get a red 4. So if we accompany ourselves over to our chart, a red 4 is another Gnoll. It's literally the exact same thing as the last one, where we place a Gnoll at the center point and then randomize a direction for him to move in. So right here is our center point, and grabbing a dice if I can find one. We randomize his direction, which is going to be 8 inches straight towards our heroes. Fantastic. But with that, we have reached the end of turn 5. And I will see you guys at the top of turn 6. At the top of turn 6, with our heroes starting to look pretty thin on the ground, it is literally just Tywin and Bryn in the fight, with Gwyneth off on her own little mission to get rich or die trying. And again, we're just going to have our heroes group activate. We're going to go with Bryn first. And let's see. He's actually just going to spend his first action reloading. Tywin will do his first action swinging on the Gnoll. Fight +3 to fight +2. Let's see if our buddy can actually finally pull it off. And it's going to be an 18 versus a 16. So, okay, that is... Tywin ends up getting a score of 21 with his modifiers, becomes a 26 with the +5 crit bonus, which just equals dead rat. So, yeah, one less rat to deal with, one less wound marker to deal with, and then for Bryn's second action, he's going to shoot the guy that just showed up, so it's going to be a shoot of +2 to fight of +2. Oh no, Bryn, as usual, is completely useless with that musket of his, completely misses with a natural 1. And that brings us to the end of our ranger phase. In our companion phase, creature phase, Archer is going to take a shot at Bryn. with a shoot of +2 to fight of +3. And of course, now Tywin rolls a natural 20 versus a 9. So the archer is clearly now a bit flummoxed that Tywin has hacked his way through the meat shield. And well, the rules say the archer can't move away, but I also can't see why he would move into combat. So he's just going to stand there. Our charging Noel with a spear, on the other hand, will have no such hesitations, running right into Bryn with his fight +2 to Bryn's fight +1. Let's see if our buddy can survive. So he rolls a 4 to the Noel's 3. They get tied up at a 5 each, neither causing any damage to the other. So then we've got Buddy Boy by the fence here, who got rid of the new guy. He's just going to make a beeline around the barricade and into close combat with our tracker. But when he does so, he gets within an inch of Tywin, who snaps into combat with him. And yeah, that brings us to the end of the creature phase. In the companion phase, greed is good, and Gwyneth is just going to make a run for it, measuring it out. Her 7-inch move gets her right up to this treasure. Her second action will be her snatching up that treasure. And that gets us to the end of turn 6. It's amazing how much faster these turns go when there's nobody left on the board. But with that, it's an even-numbered turn, no event, so we move right on to turn 7. And we are at the top of turn 7. This board's starting to look a little barren with casualties on both sides. We are in the Ranger phase where Tywin and Bryn are both going to get a chance to group activate. Tywin is going to start us off by swinging on that Knoll he's in combat with a fight of +3 to fight of +2. So let's see it. Okay, so Tywin. Well, let's start with our enemy, who rolled a 13, resulting in a 15. Tywin rolling a 17, his modifier bumps that up to a 20, which with the crit bonus for reaching a 20 or higher, he gets another +5 damage for 25 damage, also known as Splat the Rat. So that is one less Knoll for us to worry about for his first action, and for Bryn's first action, he is now going to try and take a swing at the Knoll who charged him, although I'm not as hopeful for this one. So fight +1 to the Knoll's fight +2. Yeah, as I expected, that's a 17. But fortunately, where Bryn's staff reduced his damage by 1, it also reduces incoming damage by 1. So that's going to be 16 damage subtracted from his armor of 11. That's going to be 5 points of damage, taking our tracker down to exactly half health. And that for his second, that means Bryn is just not going to get a second action, but Tywin, for his second action, is going to come right over here and fight the archer, stop him from shooting at anybody. So our archer in the creature phase is going to take a swing at Tywin, saying, "Go away, scary sword man." With the Knoll archer having a fight of +1 to Tywin's fight +3. But that doesn't really matter when you roll a natural 20. It becomes a 21. Tywin reduces that by... Tywin is down to 4 wounds. He takes 10 points of damage, taking him down to 4 wounds from an archer. Ah, the shame of it. But now our Knoll Spearman is going to continue his arduous struggle against Bryn the Tracker. Fight +2 to Bryn's fight +1. 15. So he wins with a total of a 15, causing 4 points of damage and taking Bryn down to 1 wound. It is looking bleak for the heroes of the Ranger Corps. But with that, we come over to our companion phase, where Gwyneth here is going to come over and interact with the only clue marker on the table. She is getting the treasure, she's getting the clue, and we're going to roll a quick d20 to see what she finds. She rolls a 19. So let's come over to our clue table and see what a 19 gets us. So she has found a book of poems. You find a book of poetry, apparently written by one of the soldiers stationed at Tor Varden. Some of it has been scribbled over, but enough remains to prove its worth and beauty. Okay, apparently we discovered a book of poetry. Fun stuff, I suppose. Definitely worth the trip. But with that, we are already at the end of turn 7, so it's an odd number turn. We draw from the deck of many happenings. And we get a red 2. So coming back over to our book, a red 2 is rain. Great, so now we're getting our butts kicked and it's raining. So a heavy rain starts to fall, all line of sight is reduced to 12 inches, and all shooting attacks suffer a -2 penalty. So of course, right when I get to the point where there's only one archer left and he's stuck in melee, now archery becomes non-viable. When the random number generator rains, it pours. But that brings us to the end of turn 7. I will see you guys at the top of turn 8. And here we are at the start of turn 8, where our heroes are not only now getting hacked to pieces, but doing so in a heavy downpour. But our ranger will be group activating with his buddy Bryn. All these turns are getting a lot faster now that there's only 5 models on the table. But Tywin is going to start things off by getting into a sword fight with an archer, hoping not to get critted again. And sure enough, with his fight of +3, that is going to be a total of 16, causing 5 points of damage to the archer, who has rolled a 2. Just by the way, becomes a 3, so I guess it's something. He did manage to get the archer down to half health, at least. And Bryn over here going to do much the same, hoping to get a lucky staff hit on the spearman he's been trapped in combat with for what feels like forever. And then he unfortunately does lose the fight, but again, continuing with this tradition of the Null winning, but not by enough to actually cause any damage. So they just kind of stay stuck there, and we go over to, that's kind of, neither of these of our heroes are going to be getting a second action because they couldn't quite finish off their adversaries. So we just go into the creature phase, where I guess we'll do the archer fighting back. And, man, so Tywin is going to win that fight with a total of 7, but not causing any damage. But in this case, we are going to show off his ability to now... well, no, actually, there's no point in driving back the archer, because he'll just use his second action to get back into combat. And then over here, our spearman is going to attack our tracker. And, oh dear, he is actually going to roll a 10, becomes a 12, which is exactly enough to take Bryn out of the fight. Let's see what happens to him. He rolls a 13 on his out of action result, so he is going to be just fine, but no progression point for him either. These gnolls are clearly proving to be more formidable adversaries. But with that being said, is now the companion phase, where our rogue, having gathered up the treasure and the only clue, is just booking it for the table edge. She is literally going to just run off the table edge, and she is now officially out of the game. She is past the tent and the gap in the fence, and she is just gone. So she has successfully made it off the table. But, Gwyneth has just dipped out, left Tywin to deal with his own mess. That brings us to the end of turn 8. I will see you guys at the top of turn 9. And here we are at the start of turn 3, where our ranger Tywin, like the proverbial cheese, stands alone, currently about to be ganged up on by not one, but 2 dreaded gnolls who have been hacking their way through our companions. The rest of the party has either been taken out of action or fled. And Tywin here in the ranger phase is going to see if he is going to take a swing at this archer, see if he can't finally get his stuff together. So yeah, it's going to be a fight of +3 to fight +1. Okay. So he rolls a little hectically there, but finally manages to roll decently. They roll a tie, but Tywin has a better fight modifier, so he will be winning and getting a crit score, finally cleaving this archer in twain. And so that's going to be one more dead gnoll for the pile, and I guess the question becomes what to do for his second action. We have our options. We can either run towards a full-strength gnoll while we've got 4 wounds left, or option number 2, he's got a 7-inch move, so he's actually going to pop his once-per-game dash ability to give him an extra 2 inches. He's going to have a 9-inch move, so he's just going to come over here 3 inches, and then this way 6. So yeah, 9 inches going that way 3 inches, and then 6 inches across the bridge will get him pretty far away from the enemy. That once per game dash action coming in pretty handy all of a sudden. In the creature phase, our gnoll is just going to spend the whole time playing catch up. He's going to have to come around 3 inches and then 6 inches up to about here. Currently chasing the bravest ranger you ever saw off the table. With that being said, it is the bottom of turn 9, so we actually have our last event card of the game, of the scenario, where we get a red 5. So let's come over here to our handy book and see what a red 5 does for us. It is a booby trap. Pick one random hero. There is only one. That figure must make either a traps roll or a perception roll. Either way, target 7, and if the figure fails, they receive an immediate +1 attack from the booby trap. That's not great. So apparently, Tywin has just run past the gnoll, screaming, go away, scary monster!" and, I don't know, hit a tripwire or something. He is currently a perception of +5 thanks to leveling up, so he only needs to roll a 2 or better on this. And notice I've probably just jinxed it by saying that. So 2 or better. Okay, he rolls an 18, passes his traps check, and so he just hops right over that tripwire. No harm, no foul. But that brings us to the end of turn 9, and we're actually just going to go ahead and resolve turn 10 while we're here, because it's going to be pretty simple. Tywin doesn't feel like risking getting knocked off the table and maybe dying, so he's just going to use his turn at the start of the ranger phase and run off the table. So we have fled from the lone remaining gnoll. Not the most heroic of endings to our scenario. Who am I kidding? Let's be bold. Tywin's not gonna run away like some kind of chump. So he's just gonna turn around and charge right into that gnoll, like the brave hero he definitely is. And he's gonna be a fight +3 to fight +2. God, I hope I don't regret this. And I don't! My goodness, Tywin, feeling the burning shame of running away, rolls a natural 20 with his +3, making this a total of 28. So clearly, he wasn't running away. It was all a clever trick to lure that gnoll into open ground. The gnoll has broken into an open run, trying to catch up to our ranger, who suddenly skids to a halt, turning around in a surprise attack to shove his sword right into the ribs of this gnoll, removing him from action. And then with his second... Oh, no, actually, no, that was the second action. One action to move into contact, one action to kill the gnoll. But that gets us to the end of turn 10, the end of the scenario. And it has been a bloody one with no one but our ranger surviving on 4 wounds. Guys, this was a close one coming right down to the wire. Could have run off the table, but this is just the more glorious ending. We can't be running away from a single gnoll like that. We must hold the ground. And we have done so. But with that all being said, I am going to tabulate up the experience. We've already rolled to find out what happens to our heroes. They're all going to be coming back with no negative penalties, other than the stinging memory of having gotten their butts kicked by some bridge guards. But I will come back to you guys after we figured out the experience for this scenario. So, with all said and done, Tywin has gathered himself up 63 experience points for hacking through all these guys. Unfortunately, of our companions, only Gwyneth will be getting a progression point for having run off the table rather than being yeeted off the table. But we do still need to resolve what she got for finding that treasure, so we just gotta grab our D20 here and come on over to the treasure section of our rulebook, or I swear if we get another herb or potion. And we did! We rolled another 7, so we get yet more herbs and potions. We've rolled an 18, which is a potion of slow fall. It doesn't... Let's see what that does, although I'm pretty sure I've got some idea. A potion of slow fall. A figure that drinks this potion can fall any distance and take no damage. The ability only lasts for 1 turn. Wow, that is useless. That is the worst treasure we could have possibly found. So, thanks a bunch, game. But with all that said and done, we are going to be leveling up Tywin, who was only 9 points away from his 2nd level. And with that, on this level up, I believe, yes, here we go with the Ranger levels. So last time we leveled up, we got bonus skills. This time we get to improve our stats. So we are just going to give him another +1 to his fight. So he's now going to be a fight +4. And we'll just hope beyond hope that that's enough for him to do a little better against these gnolls in the next scenario. But yeah, that is our progression so far, and that brings us to the end of everything we need to know about fighting the bridge guards. So I will see you guys a second for the outro, but thank you so much for making it this far. And there we have it. We've reached the end of our 3rd scenario of Rangers of Shadowdeep. If you are noticing that my haircut and I'm pretty sure my clothes are looking a little different from the intro, what has been mere seconds for you has actually been like 12 hours for me. I had to get some other stuff out of the way before I could film this outro. But we have made it to the end of the first scenario of our new mission, by the skin of our teeth. I've actually mentioned in the first video in this series that I've played through this some of the missions of this game in the past. I've played through this one before. This is actually the first mission where there are more event cards in the deck than there are turns when you get to draw cards. So you're not... Each time you play, there are going to be a few events you don't get. The other two times I've played this scenario, I have had the soldier show up. I've never had him just like Leroy Jenkins himself into the middle of the enemy before. That really threw my plan for a loop. I was trying to, the other times I've played, I've tried to go all like, the first time I just brute forced my way through it. The other time I tried a Metal Gear Solid stealth our way past, barely engage kind of plan. This time I was trying to do a bit of like an Assassin's Creed. We'll just like quick stabby stab the baddies in the woods. Obviously that didn't work. We barely got through this by the skin of our teeth. This is actually the closest I've come to a total party wipe in this scenario of the 3 times I've played it. Not that I'm complaining, it was an absolute blast. I was just rolling my eyes the whole time with just the weird ways this game shook out. A tracker with a bow who's deadlier in melee, a crow who is somehow like an assassin. But yeah, our rogue just like beating feet off the table with the treasure, leaving our ranger to die, and then him having his climactic showdown on the bridge. It was a blast. I had a great time, and I hope you guys did too. Yeah, the one thing I do want to clarify, when the companion models were getting taken off the table, I've been rolling a d20. There's a chart in the book that I've just forgotten to show you guys, that kind of, what you roll on the dice determines what happened to the character. If you roll a 1 or a 2, they're just permanently dead. And that's what happened to our buddy Gerard in the very first scenario. The worst result we got this time was an 8. That was for Thaddeus, and what that says, it's just a close call, and that just means that the model loses any unique inventory it has, but Thaddeus is a bird, so he doesn't have any inventory. And the rules of this scenario say that anyone who's not dead goes back to full health for the next scenario, so hopefully we can get our boys and girl to the watchtower at Tor Varden and find out what these baddies are up to. But that'll be next week's video. In the meantime, I am so glad you guys made it this far. I do hope you enjoyed watching. If you did enjoy watching it, maybe consider hitting the like button, or if you want to see more videos like it, just hop over to that subscribe button right down over there. It's free, and it really does help out the channel, more than you guys might realize. I know that's kind of a general term, but it really does help. It gets the video in good with the algorithm, make sure that more people can end up seeing this, which is kind of the whole point, right? But with the recap and the shameless self-promotion part 2 out of the way, I would love to hear what you guys think down in the comments below. I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video, but in the meantime, happy wargaming.
Onward to glory!